Good morning. It's Wednesday, November 12th, 2014. I'm Steve Miller, and this is the Asia Brief. Tuesday afternoon, South Korea's Gwangju District Court found Captain Lee Jun-Seok guilty for abandoning the Sewol ferry that sank on April 16th, claiming more than 300 lives, most of whom were high school students. Prosecutors had sought the death penalty, but judges presiding over the case cleared Lee of homicide charges and found him guilty of negligence. Lee's sentence of 36 years has been met with mixed feelings. Some commented Lee was negligent and abandoned his post, actions that resulted in the death of many, but he physically didn't intend to kill anyone, so the crime of murder was too far-reaching. The victims' families gathered and expressed disappointment and still insisted on the death penalty, according to a tweet by Wall Street Journal reporter Kwak. The ferry's chief engineer, who did not aid in the rescue of two injured members, was found guilty of homicide and received a sentence of 30 years in prison. The remaining 13 crew members were found guilty of various crimes and received jail sentences ranging from 5 to 20 years. While the families still seek the death penalty for Captain Lee, it's important to reflect on the nature of his sentence and accept that South Korea hasn't executed anyone since 1997. Captain Lee is 69 years old and with this sentence won't be eligible for release until he's 105. In all likelihood, he will die behind bars. The verdict in this case may read 36 years, but in reality, it is a death sentence for Captain Lee. In related Sewol news, South Korea formally ended search operations for the last 9 bodies yet to be recovered from the accident site. Declaring the end of the underwater search, Maritime Minister Lee Ju-Young said he deeply regretted that 9 victims of the April 16th disaster remained unaccounted. Quote, "The government deployed as many resources as possible to bring the last missing person to the families, but the situation in the ship has become too difficult for search operations to continue," he said. In Hong Kong, courts have authorized bailiffs to use police to clear out protest sites if pro-democracy demonstrators refuse to clear out. The city's number 2, Carrie Lam, warned there was currently no room for negotiations between the authorities and protesters, urging them to move out of rally sites. Lam said, quote, "I strongly urge protesters who are still staying in the occupied areas, whether the areas are covered by the injunctions or not, they should voluntarily and peacefully leave as soon as possible." End quote. Pressure continues to mount in Hong Kong as many residents have called upon the Occupy members to retreat so their stalled businesses can again flourish. As I previously mentioned, with eyes on Beijing for the APEC summit, little action would take place to resolve the standoff. Now that the leaders are poised to move on, expect Hong Kong officials to take the action they've been promising and for clashes to occur. Even though Chinese President Xi Jinping and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe met face-to-face for the first time at the APEC summit, Xi made a point to make it clear that continued bilateral discussions at that level would depend on Japan taking an appropriate view of history. Later today on the Asia Now podcast, Michael Chuchek, adjunct fellow at the Institute for Contemporary Asian Studies at Temple University, Japan, joins me to discuss why Japanese lawmakers continue to visit the Yasukuni Shrine, a symbol many associate with Japanese imperialism. Thank you very much for joining me today. To get more information on these stories, visit asianewsweekly.net for the show notes. The Asia Brief is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 international license.